And I want to make sure I was politically correct. So how are you all doing today? Good, good. Well, I'm going to tell you, to be honest with you, this morning when I got up, I knew I was coming here for a panel, right? But I do not read text messages like I should. I read the headline, and I knew I was supposed to be here. I needed to be here at 11, and I thought it was going to be a panel. I saw the P word, panel, right? I thought, okay, we're going to sit up there, we're going to talk, I can do this. But then I decided to read just a little bit. Dude, you're giving a speech. You're talking for 20 minutes. Okay, Lord, I appreciate this. That's what I'm talking about. But I want to tell you, first and foremost, I want to give up to Pastor Ken because even to put something on like this, I've known Pastor now almost 4 years. When I met him, he became a friend instantaneously, has been my friend ever since, and I thank God for him. And I just want to say it's an honor to be here on this panel, just to be speaking, especially amongst the ones that are here speaking today. So, but I need you all to do me a favor, right? See, I'm going to say that I'm not used to public speaking, all right? And I'm going to pretend like I'm nervous. So whenever you see somebody that's nervous and they're speaking in public, regardless of what they say, you kind of, you kind of encourage them, right? You kind of, you give them that strength from a distance, right? So regardless of what I say, just, Okay? Can you help me out? Let's help me out. Very good, very good. Well, of course, my topic is fathering your way. And I'm going to first tell you, I am no expert on being a father by no stretch of the imagination. The only thing I can tell you about my children is that I'm in love with them. Mm-hmm. I love my children more than I love myself. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how not to. I mean, they are so worse. They get on my nerves. Yeah. They spend all my money. Right. I have nothing, but they have what they need. Mm-hmm. And I love my children. Mm-hmm. But to be the father that I'm trying to be today, it didn't just come by happenstance. You know, growing up, growing up in my household, there wasn't a book that you read about how to be a father. Right. It was kind of, you watched what your dad did and you just emulate what he did. Mm-hmm. But before I go into that part, I want to start here. Everybody likes to have a title. You know, having a title means something good, right? And so, United States has a title, and I don't know if you're going to consider it a good title or not, but there are roughly 18.5 million homes without fathers. Mm-hmm. The United States has the title of being the world's leader in fatherless homes. Wow. Yes. That's not a good title. Mm-hmm. That is not a good title. And there are so many different reasons that we have that title. So many different reasons that we're told. And to bring it a little closer, from my research, there's about 57% African American, 30% Hispanic, and about 20% white. So it's affecting everyone. Yes, it is. But I'm speaking on everyone. But I'm an African American. Yes. So I wanted to know what is going on. Why are there so many homes, black men, homes without fathers? Why? Well, there are a lot of excuses, guys. And if you want to take it way back, one of the main reasons is there was this quote unquote a letter that was written years and years ago. And whether it's an accurate letter or not, it's been refuted, it's been said it is and it's said it is, but there's a letter called the Willie Lynch letter. And in that letter, the man, he talked about how to control your slaves. Mm-hmm. And what you would do is you would take the men and separate them from the women. Mm-hmm. All right? And so the women had to rely on their masters for everything, and the men had to go to work. And that just kept going and kept going. Now, in addition to that, in order to show that the master was the most powerful, they would take the strongest slave, tie him to 4 horses, arms and legs, and just let the horses go in their own directions to separate the limbs from their bodies, to prove to the African American women that you don't need them, you need me. But it also caused the African American women to become more self-sufficient. It caused them to be stronger. And in a sense, well, if you're here, you're here. If you're not, you're not. Now, you keep going in history. It seems like a lot of the fathers in the African American community, and even in all communities, they had to work. They were always traveling. They were always going somewhere. Where were the women? They were home with the children. And it became more prevalent. And then it became a norm. It became a norm. And I think one of the things that is baffling to me is that, and I was thinking about actually standing back there thinking about it, it's normal now for a young girl in high school to be pregnant. If she's pregnant, oh, it's no big deal. You know, oh, I'm pregnant, we're gonna have a baby, we're gonna have a baby child, we're gonna do all this. You know, now when I was in high school, it wasn't necessarily normal, but it happened. But so what I'm noticing that as the generations go forward, the abnormal is now becoming the normal. All right. And I think the word says something to the effect of weaker and wiser. Y'all have heard that in a little that parable. Each generation is going to become weaker and wiser. We are falling more into the ways of the world, and we're coming away from the ways of God. So that is one of the things that I realized within myself. In order to be a good father, I needed a good father figure. So I'm going to bring it down, I'm going to bring it back into, let's talk about my dad. My dad was a father. He was a dad. He was there. He was in the house. He worked every day. Sometimes I would go 2 or 3 days and not see my dad, not because he was working, but because he just wasn't there. But sometime or another, he would come home. He went to work, he put his suit on, everybody thought, ooh, he looks good, he's doing his thing. You know, he might drive a pretty nice car. And the entire time, my mom was running that house, both financially, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. Now, I love my dad, and I love him with all my heart because he was my dad. But growing up watching a man not care for what he brought into this world the way he should, and watching this man give to others and not give to his own home, it kind of became, okay, that's the way it is. And where I grew up, there was a lot of that going on. I grew up in a place called the Chapel, and a lot of that was going on there. There were some fathers that were in the house, but many of them were not. And as I got older, I noticed how my mom had to work harder and harder, and we had less, but she gave me the most she could, but it wasn't quite what she wanted it to be because she had no support. And so what did I do? I continued to live, and in my mind, again, that made me the norm. So I went to the military, and I, sold my royal oaths, if y'all know what that means, in the church house, amen. And I stayed a couple of tours, and I came home, and I started falling into that norm of doing what I'm used to doing. And I messed around, and I had my first child, and I wasn't married, and I loved her. Understand this, it was a girl. I was instantaneously in love with her. This is my first baby, and I always tell her, you're my first love. And the sad part about it is, I wasn't a good father. And okay, so you paid child support. You went to court, the judge said, pay this, you pay it. Oh, I'm a good dad because I pay child support. No, you're not. I'm a good dad because I get you every other weekend. Or I may, on your birthday, take you to Chuck E. Cheese. Or I may take you school clothes shopping. But I'm letting your mom raise you. I didn't understand how to be a father. One day I was in church and the pastor was talking about being a father. And he made a statement, in order to be a good father, you have to have a good father figure. And I didn't necessarily have a good father figure. I had a good dad figure. I didn't have a good father figure. And it was that day that I rededicated my life to God.
Hallelujah.
It was that day that I made the decision that I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
The sad part about it, my baby was roughly 10 years old by then. So I had missed 10 good years of not being there for my baby. Well, I luckily, this girl in Goldsboro found me. She was kind of cute too, right? And she said, look, man, come, just stay here for a little while, and I might, you handsome and everything, just hang out with me, right? And so I hung out with her for a little while, and we ended up getting married, right? And she was very lucky, I must say, okay? That was one of, I would say, not because of her, but because of the influence that came with her, because her father was the pastor of the Lord's Table in Goldsboro, North Carolina. And I joined church. And see, growing up in church, I knew about church, but I didn't know about God. I wasn't necessarily taught the things of God. I was taught the things of church. Now, I understood, now, don't get me wrong, I love my pastor. Bishop Mordecai Johnson. Preach, Mordecai, preach. And if anybody knows who he is, that's what he would do. And he would, right? And everybody get excited, woo! And you go home, what did he preach about? I don't know, but he showed you to preach. Everybody know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Well, when I joined the Lord's Table, I got a different style of preaching. So now you're teaching me. And so I'm learning more and more about the things of God. Yes. And the more I learned about the things of God, the more I learned how to be a good father. Because I could take anything in the world and relate it to being a dad. Yes. And Eric and I, we had CJ, and it was getting a little better. And then we had Mia. I got pretty good at making them baby shower. And then we had Will. And then we had Jade. All right? We ain't having nothing else. All right? We got a dog now, all right? But as each one of my kids were born, there was a different type of love, and I call it like that agape love that started growing in me, and that fire for loving my children. And it was not because of what I saw growing up. It was because of what God put into my heart.
Hallelujah. Yeah.
And so by me understanding that it's not where I came from or what I had when I was coming up, it was where I was. Yes. And I decided that I was not going to accept any excuses. Thank you. I'm not accepting any excuses for myself. And for my children, I am breaking every generational curse. So you say, well, Carlton, what generational curses did you guys have? Well, I don't mind telling you a couple of them. Can't tell you all of them because we're in the church house. But one of them was alcoholism. Yes. My grandfather was the bootlegger of Goldsboro. On Sundays when grandma went to church, granddad got in his car and delivered his liquor to the houses. Guess who went with him? My daddy and my uncle. My grandmother, she went to church, but she couldn't take the boys because the boys had to work. Then we had drug addiction, drug abuse. And if anyone understands that drug addiction is an illness, you don't decide, wake up one day and say, I'm just going to get high for the rest of my life. And I'm going to lose weight and lose all my teeth. You don't do that. But drug addiction was really rampant. And that generational curse fell on my family, and it was strong in my house. But the one thing I never saw my mother do was take one drop of alcohol, and I never saw her put anything in her mouth to smoke. I don't care how bent my daddy was. And if you know what bent means, when you get good and drunk, you kind of lean back like that, you bent. I don't care how big he was. She never disrespected him. And she told me, you don't have to do that. And I'm going to go a little bit deeper. My grandmother and my grandfather on my dad's side died from cirrhosis of the liver. My grandmother and my great-grandmother, my grandmother, and my grandfather on my mom's side died from cirrhosis of the liver. My little brother passed from a drug overdose. So it was there. But I decided it wasn't going to be with my children.
Come on.
It was not going to happen.
Come on.
My children would never see me drink.
Come on.
My children, and not because I don't, my children would never see me get high.
Come on.
Because I refuse to allow that to perpetuate. How much time I got? 3 minutes, 5 minutes? 3 minutes, very good. All right. So then when I start talking about being a good father, again, I make mistakes all the time. I'm human. I'm going to make mistakes. But those mistakes are because I love them. I may not make the right decision, but I'm making the best decision that's in my heart.
Yeah.
And I'm making a decision based off how much I love my children. And when I say I'm not going to accept any excuses, I want them to say, my dad did this, so I have to do this. In closing, in high school, normally it takes 4 years to graduate from high school.
Right.
All right, that's the norm, right? Well, it's supposed to be the norm anyway. It took me 5 years. I got put out of school because I was absolutely trifling. Got put out of school. My weakest subject was math. Well, I went to military and God came into my life and I started changing. Well, I decided to go back to school because I wanted my children to see and have an example to live by. So I went back and I got my BS degree. And I said, school ain't really that hard. So I went back and got a master's degree. And this is somewhere in the same kid that took 5 years to graduate from high school. Then I was fortunate to become a teacher. And guys, I taught math. I became a math teacher because I was determined not to have I needed to defeat that enemy. And so I became a middle school math teacher. And I taught everything from 6th grade math to algebra 1. Well, then I decided, I'm not going to stop here. Because my kids are watching, hey, why do you keep going to school? Because I need to. They don't understand that I'm doing it because I want you to see something. So I went back to school and got another master's degree in education so I could become an administrator. And the Lord blessed me to become a school administrator. So now I failed a year in high school, but now I'm a principal at a high school. In closing, I said, in order to say that I've done all that I could do to be a good father, I pray for my kids. I love my kids. I love on them. I kiss on them. I said, but I want them to see that if I can do it, you can do it. And I want you to see your dad is not a quitter. So I said, let me try this. I applied to Federal State University, got into the doctorate program, and I went through that doctorate program while being a principal of a high school. And I did that, not necessarily because I needed a doctorate degree. I didn't need to spend all that money. I did it so that I could show my children that if your daddy can do it, you can do it.
Amen.